guys, Paul Monroe here. How you doing? Today I'm going to show you everything that you're going to need to set up your own in-ear system for either your band rehearsal, or a live recording. I'm going to show you all the components that you're going to need, and I'm going to also show you what those components do. And stick around to the end of the video, because at the end of the video I'm going to show you the secret ingredient that you're going to need for this in-ear system that most people don't tell you about. It's the most important part. So stick around, and if you're ready, let's do it. All right, guys. So there's a lot of different in-ear systems that you could buy. In-ear systems are great because you don't have to rely on a sound man to get your in-ear mix. So if you're used to playing out live and you don't have your own in-ear system set up, you're going to constantly tell the sound man, hey, I need more bass. Hey, I need less vocal. Hey, can you bring the guitar up? Hey, I can't hear my drums. And throughout the entire night, you're messing with that. With your own in-ear system, especially if you have it set, you could save scenes to where it's set for that venue or that band that you're playing with. You could save these scenes so that your sound is always the same. And then each musician will have their own mix. Those are the advantages of having your own in-ear system. Forget about the sound man. In fact, the monitor guy has come up to me several times and go, hey, what do you need in your monitor? I said, hey man, you could take the day off because we have our own in-ear system. We don't even need you. So they love that. And it's very convenient for that. So let's get into some of the components that you're going to need. We'll first start out with the case. This is a Gator case that you will need to rack all of your equipment in. And the Gator cases are really good, and they're very sturdy. They're very roadworthy, so you could take them out on the road, and it's not going to get messed up. There's a few scratches on it, which is going to happen, but it's not going to crack or break on you. And it has a cover for the front and a cover for the back to keep all your equipment safe. All right, now when you buy a rack like this case, they come in something called units. So this is an 8U, which is 8 units. You can buy a 12U, you could buy a 4U, a 6U, and what they mean by units is how many units can fit in the case. So for this case, this is an 8U unit. If you look at these components here, like this is a Furman power conditioner that I'll get into in a minute. This only has 2 screws here, and it's about 1.5 inches wide or something. You could tell by looking at them, but this takes up 1 unit. The next unit down, the mixer, actually takes up 3 units. So if that's all you had, you would only need a 4-unit case. And then the drawer here also takes up 2 units, and the splitters down here take up 1 unit each. So I've used 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is an 8U case. I've used up everything. If I didn't have a splitter down here, I'd have an empty space, and you could buy little screens that you could install in there that just covers the space so that there's no dust getting in there and everything. And it'll just cover it so that, it'll take up all the spaces, and it'll actually look better too, so there's not a big hole there. And then if you end up getting another splitter like I ended up doing, you just take that screen off and then you put your equipment in there. So you just got to make sure that you buy a case that's big enough to hold all your equipment. The first item up for bid, the first item that I'm going to tell you about is this guy here, the Furman power conditioner. So this is really cool because all of your components will plug into this in the back. And I'm going to show you the back in a minute. But all of your components, like your mixer, your splitters, your wireless devices, if you have wireless receivers in here, all your components will plug into the Furman in the back. Then the Furman has a power switch right here. And with that power switch, you just flip that on and all your components turn on, as opposed to you having to turn everything on and off every single time you want to use it. Now, I only have the mixer that needs to be powered here. Everything else is self-powered. So that's all I needed. But, instead of just turning both of them on, I just use the Furman. And it also protects your equipment. So it's a conditioner. It acts like a power surge. So you definitely want to have one of these. And it has a bunch of plugs in the back, and it has one plug in the front that you could use. But one of the cool things that I really, really like about this Furman is it has 2 lights. So they just pull out like this. You could use one or you could use both of them. And then there's a switch here. So if I press the switch in, it turns the power lights on. You could see everything better, especially if you have something in your drawer that you're looking for. It'll light up the whole drawer. And then you have a dimmer switch here that will control how bright you have the light on. I always have mine on all the way because it's always convenient to see everything nice and bright. And then when you're done, you could just push these in and it automatically turns the lights off. So that's the Furman conditioner, and I'll show you the back of that in a minute. The next unit is the Behringer X32 rack. This is one of the most popular rack units out there. It goes for about $900 right now. If you get it like on Sweetwater or anything online, you can find them used for probably $700 to $800. Some people sell them for even more than that. But brand new, they're about $900. They just came out with the new wing rack unit, which is like $1,600. That's really, really cool. And you could, this is kind of, for me, this is a little difficult to use. So you have to use this with an iPad. You don't have to, but I recommend connecting your iPad to it, and then you can control everything with the iPad, all your faders and everything. It's really cool. But the new wing has that built into it. So it flips out and it has faders that go up and down. So there's lots of different rack units. You know, this isn't the only one that you can get, but this one works really well, and it's very popular and it's affordable. So if you're using it with your iPad, it'll work really good for you. So with that said, there's a lot of different brands that you could buy. I definitely had a Yamaha rack mixer before. I didn't like it as much. It was really simple, just too simple. Just didn't seem like there was as much to it as this one has. What I really like about this one is it has a lot of effects, and the effects are really cool. Like there's guitar effects, tons of vocal effects, chorus and flangers and reverb delays. Lots of really cool effects that you could use with it. And one of the things that I found that was an advantage of this over the Yamaha mixer was that the effects buses, the Yamaha only had 2. This has 4. And why I think that's convenient is because I could use effects bus 1 reverb for just drums. That's dedicated to drums. Then I have a second one that I could use a reverb for vocals. Then I have a third one that I could use for a delay for vocals. And I'm leaving a fourth one open for chorus or another effect, or even an EQ that you could put on it. So that's why I like having the 4. It was a huge advantage over just the 2 that some of the other units use. So this is the most important part that you're going to need for your in-ear system is your mixer. And I really recommend Behringer mixers. They're great. The next component we have here is a drawer. So the drawer, obviously, you just store your stuff in there. You don't have to get this. You can get a smaller rack unit with less U's, like a 6U, and leave out the drawer if you have you're packing your stuff in another bag or something like that. But a lot of people find this convenient. So it's just simple. Just pull it out. My door latch broke on this, so I'm going to be ordering a new one. That kind of happens because they're just kind of cheap plastic in there. But Eric, you want to just get the inside of that so they could see the depth of that. And you could fit a lot of things in there. And this little plug, they come with it. So that's the drawer. Now, the other 2 units here, these are 2 separate splitters. And I'll have descriptions of all the equipment that I have in here, what models I used. But these splitters are great. The idea of these splitters is to split your signal between your in-ear system and to your house, right? Or if you're using it, I mainly just use it as an in-ear system, but I could use it as a regular PA2 to go to the house, and it'll control the house PA. And it splits the signal so that no matter what you do in the house, turn up the vocals, turn up the drums, turn down the guitar, whatever you're doing, it's not going to affect your in-ear system because it splits the signal. And in the back, I'm going to show you how that works. But in the front, you can see there's one input. And I label these because, you know, they're just each splitter comes with just 8 inputs. And so I labeled them so that these are 9 through 16. So I got 1 through 8 at the top and the 9 through 16 at the bottom, just so it doesn't confuse me, because otherwise it would just be 1 through 8, 1 through 8, and I wouldn't know what's what. So all these 16 inputs correspond with the 16 inputs on the back of the Behringer. Now keep in mind that the back of the Behringer has only 16 physical inputs, even though it's a 32 channel mixer, so it could handle at least 32 channels. I think it could even do more than that, maybe like 40. I'm not 100% sure, but it could definitely handle more than 16. You have to get another expander input box that you would need that hooks up to this mixer, and then you have an additional 16 channels that you could physically plug into, like a stage box or something. That's what it's called, a stage box. So you would just physically plug those in there. But right now, this only has 16 inputs in the back. So I have channel 1 going to channel 1, channel 2 to channel 2, channel 3 to channel 3, and I'll show you how that works. And then you have some pads, some input pads, and some grounding buttons over here that really help for, you know, if you have a really loud instrument, you need to pad it a little bit, maybe like a drum, you could pad it. So the idea here for, let's say, channel 1 is my kick drum. These are, like, in fact, the whole splitter up here is all for my drums, and everything down here is for guitars, bass, and vocals. So my kick drum would go into channel 1. So now I don't have to plug everything into the back. So it'll go to input 1. My kick drum will go to input 1 in the front. I'll plug it into the front. And in the back, it has 2 outputs. That's why it's a splitter. It has 2 outputs. One of the outputs will go to channel 1 of the input on the mixer, of the Behringer mixer. It'll go into channel 1 there. The other output will go to the house with a snake. So, you would have a digital snake that has all the plugins that go into the mixer, and at the end of it, which I'll show you, like this is a snake right here. This is one that we have in our rehearsal room. And so the snake that I have that goes with that is physical cables that are just labeled 1 through 16. And so this is the stage box that somebody would have on stage for the house. And you would tell your front of the house engineer, say, hey, I got everything labeled from my mixer. Can I just plug it into your snake? And then he'll get a signal from everything. So, I would plug in, my drums. My kick drum would go into 1, and then my snare drum I'd plug into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So then he's getting all the mics he needs to instead of him going directly from my bass drum into the box himself, he's just taking a feed from my mixer now, so we could split the signal and basically share it together. And no matter what change I make on my in-ear system, or whatever changes he makes on his front of the house board, we're not going to affect each other. They're completely separate. So that's what's really cool about that. All right, now I'm going to flip this thing around. So those are basically all the components that you need for the front of it. Now I'm still going to get to the end of the video where I'm going to tell you about the most important part that you're going to need. But we're going to flip this around so you can see the back of this and what's happening here. I pulled all the cables out so you could easily see what's going on. So this is the back of the Behringer mixer. As you can see, this is the top, the Furman, so you could plug in all your stuff there. Right now, I have my mixer plugged in right here, so that the Furman, when I turn the Furman on, it turns on my mixer. But here's all my inputs, and these are the outputs that would go to the in-ears. I have 8 outs that I could work with, so each output would be for each musician. So here's, for the drummer, your guitar player, another guitar player, bass player, singers, keyboard, whatever you have. So you could have 8 outputs. And then you have these other outputs, these 1/4-inch outputs that you could use for different things like music and things like that. We have auxiliary outputs that we use for music or an iPad or an iPhone if you want to play music through that. Have a talkback mic area over here where you could plug in a talkback mic so you could talk to your musicians through the in-ears, and a bunch of other things that that you could plug in and expand from. And you could do really cool things from this. You could record from this with your band. You could do a multi-track recording. You could do a 2-track recording. There's a lot of different options there. But I just wanted to show you the back. I mean, if I got into everything here, it'd be a very long video. And then, there's obviously the back of the drawer. But down here below, you could see the 2 splitters. And as you could see on each channel, like over here, all the way to the right, I don't know if you can see that, all the way to the right, that's channel 1. It has 2 outputs. So the idea is I'm going to take one output with a patch cable, a short patch cable out of 1, and I'm going to plug it into channel 1 here. So now when I plug my kick drum in the front, it's just routing it right in instead of plugging my kick drum straight in here to the back. And the advantage, again, to doing that is so I could split my signal between my in-ear system and the front of the house PA. And then the second one, okay, so this is where you would plug in your snake. So you'd plug in your snake to this second output over here, the second output on the next channel, the second output on the next channel, and the next channel. You take all those out, 16 outs, and then you're going to have a bulk of 16 cables in your hand that you label 1 through 16 so that you know what everything is. Or you could label it kick, snare, guitar, bass. You can label it however you want, but it all corresponds, like, for the mixer, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. So everything is corresponding by the channel that you have, if that makes sense. So that's the way to do it through the mixer. And then you have that bundle of cables from the second output, and that would go into that box that I showed you earlier that's in the front of the house, so that the front of the house can also get the signal. And that's pretty much all the components that you would need to set up your in-ear system, except for one really important component that I'm going to show you right now. So my man Eric is on video today. Say hello, Eric.
Hey.
Hey. So this guy is what most people don't talk to you about when they're setting up their in-ears, or when I've seen YouTube videos, other people talking about components and what you need. This is a router. You need a wireless router in order for all your musicians to get their own mix. And I'm going to be doing another video that you could look for later that explains and shows you how to set up your router for your mixer. I happen to be an IT guy. That's what I do for a living. I've been an IT guy for like 30 years, so I understand about setting up networks and wireless networks and IP addressing and all these technical components that might be a little difficult or confusing to most people. So look for that video that I'm going to be putting out shortly. But this is a wireless router, and the way that this works is, and this I'll have a description to that in the description of the video as well, so you know which one I got. I like this one because it's nice and small. And for that rack that I showed you, in the back of the rack, I just mounted that in the back. I put that in the back on the bottom with some Velcro tape, put it on the back, and then you can put the case on and everything. You put the covers on the case and it doesn't affect that. And then when you turn the Furman on, it also turns that on. So that would plug into the Furman power supply as well. So the way that this works is you go into the configuration of this router and you give it a name. So I gave it the name Behringer X32 2.4 gigahertz. And I also have a way of setting up a second wireless, which is the same name, but named it 5.0 gigahertz. The 5.0 will be a faster connection. The 2.4 will be a little slower, but it has a lot more range. So you can go a lot further out if you're like on a wireless guitar, or if you're using your iPad or iPhone wirelessly to connect to the mixer, you can go further out and it'll catch that signal. But I usually go with the 2.4 because if you're on stage you're not, 100 feet away, 200 feet away. The 2.4 usually works best, so I would stick with that. So I'd give it a name, like the Behringer X32 2.4, and then I tell my musicians, okay, go to your iPad or your iPhone and connect with your Wi-Fi to my router. And this router with a physical cable is connected to the Ethernet port, which was on the back of that mixer. I didn't really point it out to you before. I could show you in a minute. But on the back of it, there's a port that just says Ethernet port, and that's where your router would plug into. And so now your router is controlling the connection to the mixer. So you give everybody the name. So everybody connects to the Behringer X32 2.4 gigahertz. Now they're connected to this router. And now they could download an app like the X32 Mix or a mixing station. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but there's only a few that work really good with the X32, and I'll put that in the description as well. And once they connect to the router and then bring up the app already knows that it's connected to that Behringer, so the app is going to pull up their mix. So they're going to pick Paul, or they're going to pick Bob, or they're going to pick, John. They're going to pick their name out of that mix, out of that app, and that's going to pull up their mix for their instrument. So now everybody could have their own mix and be in total control over their own mix through their phone or through their iPad. And again, it makes it very convenient because now I don't have to tell the sound man, hey, can you give me a little more kick drum? I just go to my app and I just raise the kick drum, or my iPad, which I normally use, and I just raise the kick drum. I could raise the vocals. I could take down guitar. I could do whatever I need because I'm in total control now, and everybody has their own mix. And if somebody doesn't have an app or for some reason it's not working, me as the controller through my app and through my main mixer, I could see everybody's mix. So he could, somebody could just tell me, hey, Paul, can you just give me a little bit more guitar in my mix? And I can go to their mix and give them a little bit more guitar. So now the band is in control. Right here. So let me show you. Your router would plug in to this right here, remote Ethernet. There's another one that looks the same. It says Ultranet. And they sell these boxes. Behringer sells these physical boxes that you could buy that plug into that. And now, instead of having the app, you just use this little component that they have, and they have volume on there. They have a volume for each channel, but nothing's labeled. It's kind of, in my opinion, too expensive, and it's harder to use because you got to remember who's on each channel. It's way easier just to use the app, but that's what those two inputs are for. All right, guys, I almost forgot one last thing that is really, really important, what the musicians are going to need in order for them to hear their mix. So each musician is going to need some in-ear headphones, not the over-the-head headphones. They're little small ones. I mean, you can get them from a company called KZ. They make really good ones for like less than $100, or you can get custom ones that people make for anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. There's lots of different headphones you can get. I have some West Tones that I bought from Sweetwater. They're like $400. So you are going to need some headphones. Then you're going to need something to plug those headphones into. Now I use something called the P2 in-ear monitoring amplifier. You can get those from Amazon for like $35. So my headphones plug into that. And then I take an XLR cable out of that, and that goes into one of the outputs of the mixer that I showed you. So I use a physical cable. It's a lot less expensive, and it works really good. And plus, I'm the drummer, so I'm not really moving around. If you're a guitar player or a singer, you may want to get a wireless system. So you'll need a wireless transmitter and receiver that you could actually install inside your rack. You'll need more units for that. Or you could put it in your own guitar rack or your bass rack, which a lot of people do. But there's so many of those out there that I wouldn't even know where to start with. You just have to do a little research. I wanted to make sure I didn't leave that out, because without your headphones, you definitely won't get much out of that in-ear system. All right. So I hope that was. That's pretty much it, man. go out and get yourself an in-ear system. I'd love to hear your comments below if you have any questions about any of the equipment. If you want to know exactly what components I bought, just look in the description. I'll put it in there. But if you have any questions, certainly reach out, ask me. And I usually respond to all the comments, and I always appreciate when you guys comment about it and tell me if you learned anything or not. And then look for my my other video that I'll put out soon, which will teach you how to actually physically make a wireless connection in your router and route it to your mixer and set up the IP addressing correctly so that everything works and it doesn't like just lose connection and things like that, because there's a way to set it up improperly and you'll have a lot of problems. But me being a tech guy, I have a really good way to do it. So make sure to watch that video. As always, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and learning about in-ear systems. And I will see you on the next one. Wow.